Robert Hart's encomium notwithstanding, all the way around the coast, Europe's powers had set up their enclaves. China borrowed huge sums of money from these powers to build railways and factories, which meant she also had to accept all the territorial and trading demands of the lenders. The empire finally came to an end with a last useless attempt to assert her power and drive out all the foreigners. Known by the strange name of the Boxer Rebellion, the secret society from which the name came apparently performed a sort of ritual boxing. This was a rising partly against the Manchu rulers. There had always been opposition to their takeover of China even after more than 200 years, and a huge anti-foreigner feeling spreading across the land. When things go wrong because you have made foolish decisions, it is quite common to try to blame anyone but yourselves. So the Chinese were not unique in this. The actual occupancy of the throne at this time was in doubt. The real power lay with the Dowager Empress Cixi, who cleverly maneuvered things around so that she got all she wanted. A fruitless attempt was made by the young emperor of the day to introduce reforms in education and business that he saw were necessary. He was right, of course, but it was too late, and the conservative forces working against him were too powerful. He was tragically outdone by the Empress and dethroned. She, in turn, whipped up feeling amongst the Boxers and turned their anger against her Manchu rule against the foreigners. It was these terrible British and French and Germans who were the problem, not the Manchu rulers, and they had to be shown a lesson. Of course, to the foreigners who were comfortably ensconced in their profitable enclaves, this was not acceptable. In 1904 it culminated in a disastrous foray against the foreign legations in Peking. Foreign troops were brought in, and with their superior weaponry and training, the Boxers were routed. It was the ultimate humiliation for the Chinese, and the empire was doomed. Here and there, as it was bound to be in such a talented society, reforms began. The examination for choosing bureaucrats was ended after almost 2,000 years. People turned to learning about science, commerce, and foreign affairs, but it was all too late to make a difference. The Japanese, meanwhile, in 1905, armed, industrialized, actually won a war against the Russians. How did they do it? Little inconsequential Japan. To the Chinese it was incredible and a further humiliation. However, people have been leaving poverty in China for a better life overseas for generations, so skillfully moving around the huge overseas Chinese community, raising funds and support for China, was a remarkable man called Dr. Sun Yat-sen. He sought nothing less than to topple the empire. So feeble had the government become, so weak its hold on the society of China at large, and in spite of the still present bureaucracy and its tendency to hold on, the empire collapsed. Cixi, who had caused so much trouble, died, and a child was proclaimed emperor. Then it was all swept away, and Dr. Sun Yat-sen became the first president of China with the clear intention of turning the country into a democracy. Of course, things were in such a confused mess that it just could not happen. Several times before in Chinese history there have been cataclysmic uprisings and collapses of dynasties, and the resulting chaos took generations to sort out. This time was to be no different. There were uprisings, warlords emerging all over the place, divisions of opinion, and of course the almost complete collapse of the bureaucracy. There was no financial stability, no central government even, and really no one to whom the people could turn for help. Most people had no idea what democracy meant. They had been told what to do for so long that the idea of giving responsibility to the people was difficult to make sense of. It was quite out of the question in the minds of the old guard. Amongst the government of today, people still think like that, in spite of their supposedly communist ideals.